Well, let's get started.
Let's
And
get
I want to
started.
welcome everybody to the Educast Global Challenges in ELT Conference. And one more time, I want to just thank the whole team. It's been wonderful working with everyone, helping to put this conference together. And I feel very privileged to be the first speaker because, as I've been saying already, what are we doing here? What do we do as teachers? So I'm going to be talking to you today about self-directed learning and teacher CPD, and also share with you as I close this talk about the 3 C's of bringing joy to your CPD learning experience. So let's get started. And again, there's so much that I can say about self-directed learning, but I just want to start by saying that, self-directed learning comes in so many shapes and forms and sizes. Here we are, online, but, let's look at some of the traditional ways that we see self-directed learning, and that is the face-to-face teacher conferences and workshops. We have the regional ones, the national ones, the international ones, but you got to be a member. You got to pay to go to those conferences. You got to get on a plane. You got to get in a car to go over there to be a part of that. That's what we, traditionally see as, learning when we get together with teachers. But the world is different now, and we have online CPD teacher conferences like Educast. You don't have to be a member of Educast. You can just register and come and be with other teachers. This is wonderful to learn and to start your self-directed learning. This is what's great, and this is why I'm part of this team. But there's also other ways of learning as a teacher. We have on-demand learning for pay. You can, teachers sell their information, all the things that they've learned, they sell it. And there's so many courses that you can pay for. If you want to learn about CLIL, if you want to learn about grammar, if you want to learn how to make videos, there's a teacher who's willing to teach you for pay. And then we have on-demand learning via the internet that you can go to, to learn, about improving your teaching practice. And I always recommend National Geographic Learning. They have one of the greatest sites for you to go and learn about what teaching is about. There's so many different aspects. They have on-demand webinars on their internet site that you can go and learn, and it's free. Then we have on-demand learning for free via social media. And, I'm not trying to promote myself, but I have to say that I reach 1.2 million people every month all around the world. Teachers follow me because I share, and I gladly share all my knowledge that I've, been all those things that I've learned in my experience over the 30 plus years that I've been teaching. I share that on my Facebook microblog. So, I always ask teachers, just follow me on Facebook. If you want to know what learning and teaching, what's going on in the world of education, just follow me on social media. I post something every single day that's interesting for teachers. There's something there for everyone. So again, self-directed learning comes in many different flavors, and I'm glad to be part of that. And of course, if you're doing self-directed learning, I think it's really important that you take this sort of investigative research way of doing things. Like me, I've always been curious, and sometimes we don't realize that we're doing self-directed learning. But, I think I want to take you into the definition of self-directed learning, because there's a definition of what really self-directed learning is about. Although I just talked about all the different flavors that it comes in, we need to look at really what is self-directed learning. Well, self-directed learning in its broadest terms has 6 different aspects. And I have to say that when you're, is this something new? Is this something that, was just barely discovered? As humans have existed on this planet, there's always been self-directed learning, always. And I'm going to look at the definition that was given by one of the greatest educators of the 20th century, Malcolm Knowles, who put it into 6 different aspects. As he studied that, he was very interested in how adults learn. And was there really a definition of that? What do we call it? And he said that there are actually 6 parts of self-directed learning. One of them is that when we look at the behavior of teachers or any adult who's learning, that the first thing that they really do is they take the initiative to want to learn. And they do it just because they are curious. And either they learn by themselves or they find somebody else to help them to learn because they want to know more. So the number 1 thing is they take the initiative to learn. The number 2 thing is that they really diagnose and reflect on what they need to learn. They sort of think about it. They want to fill in the gaps. There's something missing, and they know that. And they want to fill in that gap. And they formulate or, set some learning goals. They know what they want to learn, whether that's a short-term goal or a long-term goal. Because not everything that we learn is something that we can learn very quickly. Sometimes it's going to take a longer time. It's going to take a lot of steps to get there, to learn something. And they identify and locate either a human or material resource that's going to help them to learn that. If I can Google something, that's a material resource. Google. YouTube is the best teacher in the world. And they go to Chat GPT and that's GPT something. But they start finding either an individual, a human, or a material resource to help them fill in those gaps. And they choose and implement the appropriate learning strategies. If we're a teacher and we're teaching in the classroom, we have strategies that we use, whether we know that or not, on how we teach. And we should also reflect on how we as a teacher learn. So we do have, some ways that we like to learn. And sometimes when we're learning something new, we have to create new ways of learning. But as teachers, as individuals, as humans, we find that way because we want to fill in the gaps. We want to get better. We want to self-develop. And once we start learning, we take some steps back every now and then, and we evaluate what's going on. Are we learning something? What are we learning? How can, I use what I'm learning in the classroom? So we evaluate what we really do. This is what Malcolm Knowles really defined as self-directed learning and self-directed learners. Well, let's move on. And I'm going to take the same thing that I just told you and move that into a framework. Because there is a framework, there's really steps. So let's now let's take what Malcolm Knowles said and put that into a process, a framework. And it really starts, again, I'm just repeating what Malcolm Knowles said and putting it into a framework, that, the first step is that we enter, learning, and we take responsibility for our own learning. We plan what we want to learn, and we know what we want to reach. We sort of have set some outcomes for ourselves, and we plan some activities, like you being here today. You planned to be here. You want to be here. You want to learn. You want to maybe see if you hear something that's going to fill in the gaps for you. That's self-directed learning. But, seeing it as a process, we take control of our own self-directed learning. And we control the resources. We choose the people we're going to work with, and we choose the materials that we like and that we want to work in. And I have to say something there. Sometimes the choices that we make might not always be the right ones. And we sort of start to realize that maybe that person might not be the one who's going to really help me to learn what I need to learn. So we take a step back and we maybe find somebody else, or we go, maybe Google's not telling me what I need to know. Why don't I ask ChatGPT and see what that tells me? We move to step 3 within the framework to really start, consciously monitoring what we're doing and thinking about what we're doing. That's metacognition. Metacognition starts to kick in. I myself, as an organizational psychologist, am always interested in what metacognition really is, because when I'm inside of a classroom, I got to bring my learners to start not just speaking English, but thinking in English and thinking about thinking. How they do things, what works for them. That's metacognition, is thinking about thinking and how we do things. And the last step within this framework is whatever we're learning, whatever we've chosen to learn, that will it change how I do things? Will it change how I act, how I behave as an individual, as a teacher in the classroom? Will it change my behavior towards my learners? We start to see that, learning has to have an outcome. And one of those things is change. How am I changing the way I do things in the classroom? And that's what these talks are about today. So let me just wrap that up for you really quick. In a nutshell, is that self-directed learning is about taking charge of your own education. It's about discovering what you want to learn. It's about setting learning goals. And it's about choosing personal learning strategies. And it's about evaluating really what you have learned. Self-directed learning does have benefits. And what are some of those benefits? If you're on a self-directed learning journey, self-directed learning teaches you to take initiative. That's the first step, and to create value with what you're learning. It helps you as a teacher, as you're learning, to build self-confidence. It helps you to be flexible. It helps you to kindle that intrinsic motivation in you. We have that as teachers. What motivates us, inside of us, and what's, getting us to want to learn more. And it also promotes self-awareness of who I am in the classroom, what I do in the classroom. And it helps you to find a career that you really is fulfilling for you. A lot of people, when they start teaching, they maybe might realize that might not be the thing for them. But once you decide that teaching is for you, it has to be fulfilling. You have got to want to be in that classroom. You've got to want to be with those people who are your learners. And you've got to like it. I just totally believe if you don't like it, why are you teaching? But maybe you can find, a way to like what you're doing by just setting a self-directed learning journey for yourself and finding out what you really need to know about improving your teaching practice. And, once, you start learning, you realize that, self-directed learning is a great way to take a holistic approach to learning, a natural way, because you're the one who's making those decisions for yourself. And, once you've made those decisions, you start to realize that You want to be around other people. So self-directed learning is, something about improving your social skills as well. And it helps you to broaden your interest in other topics, not just, grammar or speaking or listening. Those are important things too, but there's a lot more going on in the classroom than just those things. And it gives you practical experience to execute what you've learned. So those are some of the benefits of self-directed learning. But now I want to quickly move on, and I'm going to move fast now. I'm going to share with you 10 things that I think really take you into a deeper dive into what self-directed learning is. And these are reflections that I have made about myself. And I want to share that with you right now. So get ready as I quickly walk you through 10 suggestions and ideas about self-directed learning. And the first thing is that when you start self-directed learning, you need to know that your personal expectations that we bring to a CPD event like this one today is going to affect our takeaway, what we really take away, what we really learn. So today, before you get started, on this journey of self-directed learning, you need to ask yourself, what are your personal expectations of this event today? And what am I basing those personal expectations on? And are my personal expectations connected to a personal interest that I have? And are those personal expectations connected to my teaching learning context? Because we do need to know about what our teaching learning context is. Sometimes after a talk, you realize, maybe I'm in the wrong teaching learning context. Maybe I want to be in another one. It's the same way with me. I went to university and I started with primary school education. And then I realized after a while, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into secondary school education. And I changed after 1 year because I realized that it wasn't the teaching learning context that I wanted to be in, once I was in there. So, we do make self-realizations on our self-directed learning journey. Now, after a self-directed learning journey like today, you do need to step back and say, well, what did I really learn today? And were my expectations met or surpassed? And how do I transfer what I've learned today? This is also very important. Now let's move to number 2. And, we as teachers, we have assumptions of and attitudes and beliefs about what we think learning is about. Those are going to affect, not only how we behave and perform in the classroom, but how we make decisions on our self-directed learning journey. What do I want to learn is based upon what I believe. So if you believe that teaching is about teaching English, it's about teaching grammar, and you like the grammar syllabus, that's probably going to, guide you in your self-directed learning journey. But we do know that, grammar syllabus is not always the best way to learn. But how do we know that? Somebody has to tell us. The experts, Scott Thornberry, will tell you that right now. Go to his YouTube channel and see what he says about a grammar-driven syllabus and how teachers maybe should really rethink of that, okay? And so before you start any self-directed learning, ask yourself, what assumptions, attitudes, and beliefs do I have about learning and teaching? And that does mean developing a teaching philosophy. And what is teaching philosophy? Many people have said, isn't that old-fashioned to talk about teaching philosophy? No, it's not. All you got to do is go to Google and find out what teaching philosophy is and really develop one for yourself. That's going to be your mission statement. That you as a teacher, when you go to a job interview, you should always be prepared to answer the question, what is your teaching philosophy? Because that's going to say everything about you. Well, How do we develop a teaching philosophy? How do we really know? We have to reflect. We have to ask ourselves what we believe. And reflecting on our personal knowledge and classroom practices is important because that's going to help us to realize what we really do believe from experience. So you need to ask yourself, how have I been teaching in the past? Answer that question. Write it down. And how am I teaching right now? And when we compare how we were teaching in the past and we see how we're teaching now, we should see some development. But when we see that there's something missing, that there's gaps that we have to fill in, that's how you start your self-directed learning journey, by wanting to be to fill in the gaps, to be curious, to learn more. So the last question is, how do I want to teach in the future? And the next one is, who am I? Who am I? Who is this person that's in that classroom? What about me, my teacher identity, my classroom persona? Our personal past classroom experiences and past personal learning journeys affect how we understand what's going on. So we really not only need to reflect, but we need to ask ourselves, who am I as a teacher? So we need to ask ourselves, what classroom experience do I bring to the table? If someone asks me that question, I can answer that question. And what do I already know about the topic that I'm learning? We do know some things when we go to learn something. What do I know? And what do I need to learn about that? And whatever it is at some workshop, what is that workshop or that speaker really giving me that I can benefit from to improve my teaching practice? And that's going to help us to, develop that classroom persona. And when we start to learn, we need to connect what we're learning always to our teaching learning context. So we do need to ask ourselves, what is our teaching learning context? And who are my learners? What do I know about my learners? What do I know on how they learn? And what do they want to learn? What do they need to learn? This is going to help us, to understand that teaching learning context. And what can I do as a teacher to help my learners meet their personal goals? Is their personal goals just to learn grammar? Well, I hope not, because that's not what language learning is really about. And when we come to a, CPD event like this one today, we want to network. We want to, be with other teachers. We want to ask questions. We want to learn. And we want to share. And I ask everybody here today, use that chat box, say something, ask questions, because this is going to help the speakers to really help you by, answering your questions that you ask. They can tell you a story. They can share their experience with you. And storytelling is a very important part of networking. That's what it's really about. Many of the teachers that you're going to hear today are going to tell you stories. They're going to share something with you, and that's important. And that's an important part of networking. And do you go to, and network with other people? Are you in a personal learning network? And what life experiences do you have that you can share with other people to help them learn? That's what networking is about with teachers. And, when you're learning something, this is really important, that you got to be open-minded. Because you're going to hear a lot of different things that are very different than how you're doing things. But we can learn from that those things that are different, we got to be able to think out of the box, because that's going to help us to learn. We got to step away sometimes from what we believe to be right, because, in order to improve, we just got to, be open-minded and think out of the box. And you have to ask yourself, how can I apply what I'm learning to my teaching learning context? How can I incorporate or innovate the things that I'm learning? And what do I need to change or improve? And am I taking risk in the classroom by trying out these new things that I'm learning today? Because there's going to be a lot of people telling you a lot of things, and it will affect what you do in that classroom and hopefully help you to improve your teaching and learning practice. So let's move on to, every now and then, and this is going to happen today. There's going to be people talking about so many different things, and maybe you think that has nothing to do with me. Well, that might be the talk that you really need to go to. That might be the talk that's going to, that you need to hear. I've been to workshops that I thought I'm just going to go inside that room just to see what they're talking about. And I could not believe what I walked away from. It was something so different that, it's just changed the way I think about things. There was one talk that I went to in London. I will never forget it. I was listening to a great speaker, and I started to cry. Tears were coming out of my eyes because what that man was saying to me touched me so much that I realized, oh my God, I love being a teacher. That man motivated me so much. I came back to Germany and I just threw myself into the classroom and became, I think, more responsible about what I did because I took the time to go to a workshop that had nothing to do with what my teaching and learning context was about. So, make some decisions on maybe go somewhere else, learn something different from some other people, and maybe that can help you to improve your teaching learning context. And the next thing is, whether we like it or not, we have to adapt to market forces. This is what's happening right now. And technology drives what happens in our modern, learning environments that we work in. Some of us work in low resource classrooms, some of us work in high resource classrooms, but there's a lot of things going on. And of course, the biggest chatter right now all over social media is ChatGPT. You need to ask yourself, do I know what that is? Because that is affecting what will happen in your classroom. I develop all my lesson plans now with ChatGPT. And on my social media site on Facebook, I have a great tutorial on teaching you how to do that. I share that with people because I love what I do. And if I love what I do, I'm going to share that with other teachers. So you need to ask yourself how you're using technology to create lesson plans. You need to ask yourself how you're integrating technology into your classroom and your lesson plans and learning cycles. And you need to ask something here. And this is probably the most important thing I'm going to say to you. I ask this to every teacher. What is your TPAC? You need to know the answer to what is your TPAC. I ask you here today to please Google the term TPAC because you need to know what that is. TPAC is the acronym for Technology, Pedagogy, and Content Knowledge. And every teacher should know the answer to what is my TPAC. And the last thing here is remember that, self-directed learning is about lifelong learning. It's about self-development. It's about self-improvement. And so after any CPD event that you go to, take some time to reflect on how you're going to take control of your personal CPD journey and what are going to be the next steps to help you to self-develop. What actions are you going to take to improve yourself? How will you adapt or change the content of your lessons and your teaching practice? How are you going to drive that learning cycle in the future? And what are you going to try out in the classroom that's new? Where are you going to take some risk? Teachers are risk takers. They should be. And you need to want to try something new that maybe you learned here today. And I want to finish off by saying that I am just a great admirer of this woman here. She has inspired me, brought more motivation into my life about wanting to be a teacher. And she's said here is that she has 3 C's about, bringing learning, making learning, learning's not going to always make us happy, because we have to learn things that maybe we don't like, but we know we need to learn those things. And so learning is not really, as she said, really something that's going to always make us happy. But whatever we're learning, we should put some joy into that. And when she said this, I just like, this is it. This is true. And she calls them the 3 C's of bringing joy to your learning experience: choice, celebration, and conversation. We need to take control of our personal learning journey. We need to put ourselves in the driver's seat. We need to make the decisions about what we want to learn. We need to make choices that will bring us forward. And we need to celebrate whatever we're learning. We need to celebrate those milestones as we reflect and take steps back as we're learning things. We need to acknowledge that we're moving forward and how far we have come by setting some goals for ourselves. And every now and then, just treat yourself to something nice. I do. Like yesterday, I just went into the city and I just wanted to be alone to think about what was going to happen today. And I wanted to enjoy that because I was excited about it. And conversation is very important. You need to share what you're learning with other people. You need to create some dialogue with your colleagues, with people who are also, sharing your teaching, learning practice, or other teachers. So for me, I always say join a professional learning network, or, a personal learning network. And if you're not part of one, create one with your fellow teachers, because this is really important. And I want to ask you here today that if you really are interested in self-directed learning, find out what it is. What do I need to learn? What are those topics? We're going to hear a lot of things here today, but follow me on Facebook, on my microblog, where I share with you so many different things about learning, about teaching, about what's going on in the world of education that is important for us to learn, to know, to help us improve our teaching practice. I share those with everyone. So here I come to an end by saying, I want you to enjoy today and learn something. Have a notebook with you, take some notes, listen to the speakers share their knowledge with you today, because this is a personal learning journey today. So Mo, I'm going to turn that over to you so that we can ask some questions. So do we have any questions that we have to answer?
Well, first of all, Ron, thanks for this wonderful presentation. It was really beneficial for all of us indeed. So Marwa, could you please tell us about some of the comments that we have seen today in the chat box?
Yes, gladly. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Marwa.
Hello, dear. So Rasha Said is saying first time to attend an Educast conference. And Eunice said the whole life is a journey of learning. Absolutely true. And Natasha said, I'm from Philippines. I teach English for Japanese students. Wow, that's interesting. And Eunice said reflection is critical to us as teachers. And he also said we should have such spirit of responsibility for our students.
Definitely.
Also here we have Asma Said, who said CPD is continuing professional development, in case somebody doesn't know. And Shayma Said said, I had a task about teaching philosophy in an online course I'm attending. Wow, that's interesting. And last but not least, M. Adwa said, great and well organized. We need you, dear master, to share the material instead of capturing or taking notes. Keep it. Also,
I'm going to say, Marwa, right there, I am going to post this PowerPoint presentation on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, so that people can have that so I share everything. Mm-hmm.
That's great, thank you. Also, Shayma said cascade knowledge. Asma said thank you. Eunice said as well, if we can't prevent students from using Chat GPT, how can we make students use it in an ethical way, not in a way that affects their performance negatively?
Well, you know, we as teachers have to learn how Chat GPT works. You know, I have to say that Google announced that they're going to, you know, introduce their, artificial intelligence to the internet as well. That's coming in a few weeks. So, you know, we got to be on top of what's going on with the world of education, how we can use artificial intelligence to really help us to improve our teaching practice. And the only way that we're going to really learn to teach our students how to use it is by us knowing how to use it. You know, I spend about maybe an hour every day in the morning working with Chat GPT to help me to create lesson plans. And I have to say that it's just fabulous. You just have to know what to ask Chat GPT. And I also have a tutorial on my Facebook site with a mind map showing you how to use Chat GPT as a teacher, because, you know, and it's an easy tutorial. Just play with it. You're going to learn a lot by using that tutorial to learn how Chat GPT works. And Margaret, do we have any other questions?
No, just a comment. Muhammad is saying what a nice and clean, but he didn't continue. So thank you so much, Ron, for this wonderful presentation. That's all.
Yeah. Actually, I have two questions right now. Well, the first question was regarding the presentation, and you already answered that. The other question is, by Mohammed Nawaz. How do we get ourselves familiar with new tools in a way that helps supporting our current strategy?
Well, you know, part of improving our teaching practices, and I hear the key word there are tools. And what do we really call tools? Because, you know, a course book can be a tool. A telephone can be a tool. A mock test can be a tool. And so we got to know all those different, if you're an educational psychologist, you call these things manipulatives. What can I use to manipulate the learning process? So it can be anything. And we have to familiarize ourselves with all those learning tools, technology, books, methodologies. Methodologies are tools that we use to teach. So how are we going to know what that is? You're only going to know what that is when you reflect on what you do in the classroom and being around other teachers and listening to them, going to my Facebook microblog to find out what's going on in the world of education. This is going to help you to really improve yourself by learning and knowing, first of all, what's out there and creating a little bit of a self-directed learning path for yourself to learn about those tools. Because it's, you know, for me, it's please learn to get away from a textbook. I don't have anything against textbooks, nothing against them, because I think that's a great way to learn how to teach. But we also have to teach ourselves to go beyond that textbook. And what is it out there that takes us beyond that textbook? So yeah, we got to learn about a lot. And that starts with knowing what's out there, sharing with other teachers, listening to our speakers today. They're going to tell you a lot of things. And you're going to hopefully be curious to want to learn more.
Okay. So Marwa, have you got any other questions?
Yes, we have one more question. Let me check. Okay. Sarah is saying, Hi, the world faces nearly many difficulties like corona, earthquakes, and so on, like what happened in Turkey. How we as teachers help our learners to recover in order to accept learning?
You know, the situation in Turkey right now is actually heartbreaking. It's devastating. But, you know, I have to say something. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm an organizational psychologist and an educational psychologist. And, you know, when we walk into the classroom, sometimes things are happening around us in our world, war, hunger, political strife, social unrest, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes. But is this something new? It's always been there, always. But we as teachers need to know what's happening in our world. And sometimes taking just the time to talk to our students about current events, let them voice how they feel. This is sometimes what Scott Thornberry calls a dogme event, where we just have to deal with it, you know, listen to our learners, let them express their feelings and emotions about certain things. You know, sometimes we just have to take a step back and not teach grammar or not teach, you know, speaking can come in many different ways. And yes, we do have to deal with those uncomfortable topics sometimes. You know, I try to stay away from religious topics because that can be very, you know, open up Pandora's box. But sometimes we do have to deal with those things as teachers. And, you know, learning how to teach current events is important as a teacher. And you can Google that. You can find out how you tackle these topics. Sometimes we call those parsnips. What is a parsnip? Find out about it and how we deal with that. That's important because those things have always happened. They're happening now and they will happen in the future. And we as teachers, we got to deal with it every now and then in the classroom. Language learning deals with a lot of different things. And one of the things we deal with is current events. So learn how to handle that. Google it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
I totally agree. Okay, we have two more questions. Mervat is saying, what makes self-directed learning more effective and fruitful?
Well, you know, all of us, not just teachers, every single job in the world that exists, we have to future-proof ourselves. And I didn't mention that word there, but we do need to future-proof ourselves. Things are changing very quickly. And we as teachers need to find out how is the world of learning changing? Corona helped us to realize that many teachers were not very good with technology. And the teachers had to catch up with, you know, how technology works because they had to teach online. And teaching online is not the same thing as teaching face-to-face. So, you know, we had to create some, you know, learning for ourselves to be able to still work. And that's a good example of how we have to future-proof ourselves. What's happening in the world today? Well, ChatGPT is happening right now. And many teachers are scared. What is it? Well, how is it going to change the way I teach? You shouldn't be scared. You should be curious. You should want to know what that is. I was curious, and like I say, I spend 1 hour a day playing with ChatGPT to educate myself. I'm still learning. And it's great. I love learning, and I love what ChatGPT is teaching me because that's only going to make me a better teacher. So you got to be curious. You got to know where to go because this is what's important about self-directed learning. I want to learn to be a better teacher, to help my students reach their goals. I love it. So find out what you need to learn. So, you know, hopefully that will answer that question. Any other question, Marva?
The last question is from Sarah, and she's asking you about your favorite advice for all of us. And we can just end with this. So I'll leave this to you.
Yes, and I'm going to say, what a wonderful last question that is. Thank you, Barbara, for saving that question for the last one, because I have something that I posted just the other day on social media that answers that question. Teach what you know and love doing it. This is important. This is really important. You got to teach what you know, and the more you know, the better you're going to be as a teacher. But no matter what it is, love being in that classroom, love being with your students, because you got to put your heart into it. I do. My students know that. I love every minute of walking into that classroom with my learners. So
that's a wonderful piece of advice, Ron. Yeah, that's a wonderful piece of advice. Thanks a lot for this wonderful presentation.